Hi everybody. It's Wednesday. Happy Wednesday to you. In Psalm 122, the psalmist writes, I was glad when they said to me, let us go to the house of the Lord. I was glad when they said to me, let us go to the house of the Lord. You know what the psalmist didn't say? The psalmist didn't say, I was glad when they said to me, let us go to our front room, or let us go to the couch, or let us go to the porch to worship God. This Sunday will be our 11th Sunday of online worship, and I know that it is unusual. And I know that while we are adjusting, it's still not our preference. Our preference is to be together. And there will come a time when we will say to one another again, I was glad when they said to me, let us go to the house of the Lord. However, for a while still, we will be meeting in this way with online worship only. And so I wanted to offer to you today a couple of helpful hints or tips that maybe might help you. When I met with session on Monday night of this week, elders too were just expressing that they would love to be in this place. They'd love to be in this sanctuary place. How is it that we can make a sanctuary place a space to meet with God in our own homes? So just 4 things maybe to hold on to this week as you think about preparing for worship on Sunday and then in the weeks ahead. First of all, consider committing to a time and to a space for worship. Consider committing to a time and to a space for worship. I have good news for those of you who are late risers. The time does not have to be 9:30 a.m. on a Sunday morning. It can be later if you happen to sleep in. But I think we all know in these unusual days that it is helpful for us to have a schedule and to try to stick to it. And as we come to worshiping God, let's prioritize that. So commit to a time, and if you're sharing your home with others right now, maybe sit down and have a conversation and say, when would be a good time for us to gather for worship each Sunday? And then also commit to a space. It's hard to make a living room feel holy or sacred, but perhaps in little ways you might be able to do that. Maybe light a Christ candle and pray before you begin worship that God might come and be present to you. So commit to a time and to a space. Secondly, limit distractions. Now, I know if you have little children at home, you are rolling your eyes at me right now, and I get it because there's really no way to limit our children, is there? So one of the things that we do in our home is the boys stay with us for the first part of worship, and then they leave after the children's conversation, and we invite them to play quietly. No screens, no noise, but just to play quietly for the rest of that time. If we're having communion, we invite them to come back and to share in communion with us. It's not perfect, trust me, it's not always pretty. But if you can just do your best to engage them in worship and then to free them up to play just as we do here in church. But for some of us, just remembering that if we were in church, we probably wouldn't answer our cell phone. And if we were in church, we probably wouldn't go and switch over the laundry in the middle of worship. So just limit the distractions as best you can. Don't try to multitask. Again, have this be a time set aside. Commit to a time and a space. Limit distractions. Be a participant, not a spectator. This time above all times, it really is challenging, isn't it? It feels like maybe we're just showing up to watch worship. But you are not just showing up to watch worship. You are showing up to bring your worship to God. Although it may feel a little bit strange and unusual, sing out loud, join in the prayers, maybe even pause the prayers of the people if there are other prayers that you wanted to add. But sing and pray and join in as best you can and know that you are worshiping God. Commit to a time and a space, limit distractions, be a participant and not a spectator. And then fourthly, consider sharing with others. I don't mean sharing the worship service, although I do invite you to do that, but I have never ever been in a church where a family enjoyed passing the peace as much as we do here at Clinton Presbyterian Church. We could pass the peace for a long, long time. And so I know that our sense of family, our community, our connection with each other is really a vital part of our worship life. And that feels very different in this season. But just because you can't chat with your friend in the pew after worship or in fellowship hall during fellowship hour, it doesn't mean that you can't pick up the phone and call them. So maybe after worship, consider calling a friend from church and chatting to them. You can talk about the service, you can talk about your lives, you can talk about whatever. You're just making that holy connection one with another, siblings in Christ. Again, I know that we long to be in this particular house of God. Remember, though, that God has promised to make a home with you in your own homes. So as you gather to worship, maybe those tips will be useful for you. And may we, as we begin worship, truly be able to say, this is the day that the Lord has made. We will rejoice and be glad in it. Peace be with you today.